Welcome everyone, thanks for coming. Welcome to any input that you may have. And it is 6 o'clock, so we'll call it to order. First order of business is recommend the school committee approve the January 13, 2015 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion? Stephanie? Paxton, all in favor? No additions or changes to the agenda. Let's see, the only thing I have, I just wanted to recognize Stephanie. I forgot to recognize the last time, going to start in the legislature and then working and then being in the legislature.
We've already done this.
And then being in the legislature and then coming to the meetings tonight. We appreciate it. So,
Anything for you, Larry.
oh, well, we're one big happy team. And John will be coming in, and Bill's recovering from knee surgery, so he won't be in tonight. And that's all that I have, and off to you, Mark.
Okay. I'm going to go real quick tonight because I know you've got
Have your Harry Potter glasses.
budget issues to discuss.
They look good.
Seen too many of those movies.
They're big in my house. Thank you.
Okay, since it was only a couple of weeks since we last talked, I wanted to catch you up to date on a few things. At the last meeting, I told you that our basketball teams at the elementary school were heading into the playoffs. The boys fought hard but exited from the competition. On Monday night, our girls' 8th grade basketball team won the Bus Line League Championship for the second year in a row. And on Thursday, which I believe would be tomorrow, our 7th grade girls are going to be at home and they're also playing for the championship. Our band concert was scheduled for Tuesday night but got snowed out, so I'm guessing that we're going to have a makeup date, and when I know when that is, I will get that out to you. I've been harping on our NAEP testing that's coming up. That will be for our 4th and 8th grade students. And that's going to be interesting because it's all being done, most of it's being done in electronic ways now, and there have been a lot of glitches, and that's one of those things where they invite you to take the test but you can't say no, and you don't get any results from it at all, so you get nothing from it other than it goes into that big nation's report card to let you know how. So we're going to be doing that on February 12th. The second piece of paper that I gave you tonight is the thing that I really wanted to talk about. I wanted to catch you up on. I had showed you earlier the work that primarily Corey Chase and Kristen Gray had been working on. I had asked them to come up with a standards-based report card for middle school because knowing that, you know, we're part of the standards-based diploma now, we needed to start heading in that direction. So the last time I shared with you, I gave you a blank one. What I've given you tonight is they've actually started using this with the students, and they sent this home with the kids. I'm sure we're not exactly yet where we will end up being, but this was a really good practice run. It gives you an idea of what standards they're shooting at in middle school for language arts, gives you an idea of the indicators, and it also gives you an idea, if you go to the third page, that shows you the scoring guide. And you know, we're at a point where we're not sure yet whether it's going to be just plain 1, 2, 3, 4, or if we're going to go with you know, meets, exceeds, partially meets, or doesn't meet. So they gave both. There's also a section for teachers to comment to parents. And the last page that I included was, I told you, in order to make this work, we're going to have to over-communicate with parents. And this was the letter that Corey and Kristen came up with, sent home. So if you do happen to have a child that's either in 7th or 8th grade this year, they should have received this when the report card goes out. And again, I did very little with this. They did all the work. But I think it's what we're going to see down the road. I hope it'll be a model to use, not only for the rest of our school, but also maybe perhaps, to share with the high school. So that's all I have tonight, and I'd be glad to answer any
Have you gotten
questions
any
for you.
feedback?
Corey, did we get any feedback? No.
How long ago did you send them out, Corey?
It's Friday. We
Oh,
just sent it out Friday.
So
I
it's
thought
all-
I'd get a lot of responses email-wise, but sometimes the kids don't take them home immediately to the parents, so they might not even have them yet. I don't
I
know.
don't believe that.
I will imagine, they're probably in their locker, so hopefully we'll get some more. And the ones Mark handed out to you, there are typos on there, because that was their typos. I fixed those, just an FYI.
This is the draft,
That was the
yes.
draft, no, but the ones I sent home to parents were fixed. That was just some typo ones that I gave them to look at, but I haven't heard anything yet, so we'll see.
I think this is the future right here, so.
What do you think of it, Corey?
I liked it. It's really just a first step. There are a few things that we want to change that we see are overlapping, especially when we did the report cards. So there are a couple of things on there that won't be on there in the spring when we redo this for second semester at the end. But it was a good kind of starting point to kind of see what are we doing and how is it matching up to our assessments. So I like it, and I think once parents are taught about the system, I think it'll work very well, because then the parent can say, oh, I can see that you don't understand the editing piece of it, and I can see this is what's happening, and I can look back at your assessments and see why, and it's not just on the teacher to give you a B. So I think they'll like it once everyone understands the system.
How about the kids? Are they aware of it?
My 7th graders really like it. The 8th graders struggle more with it because they've had grades for a year, so they like to have the grades, the A, B, C, D type of thing, because it's hard when they see a PM, because we haven't done it. We've only done one exercise in public speaking, so they couldn't get an M yet because we haven't done a variety, and so a lot of them had a hard time with that. They would have rather just gotten the grade.
That's just a lot of it getting used to it and everything.
Yeah.
Can they get something to know where they're at besides a P or an M?
Yeah, they have a regular grade on Power School, so they do have that access to it as well. But eventually, for the 7th graders, the way the state's going, it probably will be the meets, does not meet type of activity, but I'm not sure yet how that's going to go.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Mark. And Brendan's not here, he's at his class, so King.
Okay. Evening, everybody. Carl couldn't make it tonight, so I'm sure we'll hear from him in February. We just finished our semester finals. As you know, this is our first year with our new bell schedule, so it went fairly well. Learned some things along the way around the structure of setting up semester finals and starting new courses, so few bumps along the way, but it worked out okay, and I think everyone was able to get things together, but did learn some things for next year as we plan around giving a little more time to transition, looking at that weekend in January and how we use that, and trying to, maybe not make the shift so abrupt for the students and teachers. So that being said, though, I think the schedule's still going very well. You remember a few highlights is we have an all-school study hall right now that's new this year, in which all of the students are available and all the teachers are available at the same time for about 50 minutes a day. This took place of our traditional study halls, as we found those were being pretty underutilized by a majority of the students, and this is a time where we call it core, and the students have that time. We have that tagging software that I showed you earlier on, where teachers can tag students. They log in, okay, hey, I've been tagged by Mr. LaRue, I have to go there. And it just gives access. A lot of our students are busy after school, they do sports, they need our transportation on the buses, they can't stay after, so it's been nice seeing that and seeing students have that accessibility to teachers, whereas before it used to be, well, geez, Mr. Pinkham may have a prep period during my study hall or may not, or something like that. So that's been a nice piece. We have a new transition. Students are in new courses now. I like that kind of energy. This, in years past, this can be kind of a tough time. It's cold out, no one's getting outside, same old, but now teachers and students have new faces, new courses. So our students have already had the equivalent of 4-year-long courses under their belt, starting 4 new courses this semester. And so again, they have a chance to take 8 full courses in a year, whereas in previous schedules it would be 6 or 7 courses. So AP courses are meeting year-long this year, so they're meeting for both semesters. I'll be pretty curious to see how that works out come May when the AP exam comes around, and we'll obviously share that data with you when we get it. But all in all, I think it's gone good so far, and we'll be talking with the kids and teachers as we progress and get feedback, but I'm very happy with it. So, and as I said, I will have data on student performance at our next meeting. We haven't had all of our grades finalized to run yet, failure numbers, honor roll numbers, things like that. We did see a spike in honor roll numbers for first quarter, but I want to see if that continues on for the semester.
Good.
So, as Mark mentioned, our band concert, which is going to be a combined middle school and high school band that Mark Phillips is doing. It's going to be a combined concert. We have to reschedule that. We're going to do it in the auditorium. A lot of times we'll do it off campus somewhere, but this year we want to try to do it on campus, let the kids perform in the school, and so it'll be a nice junction between the middle school and the high school. Mark's doing a great job his first year here, and the new schedule again's created some pockets and some variables to think about, but I think we have some good ideas for next year on to how to make band a little more accessible for our students. So things are going well there. They're using high school is actually practicing band in the high school this year. In years past, they've gone over the elementary school, but we found some space, which is always a pretty tough commodity, but we found some space and they're practicing in here. I think that helped the kids with using the study hall time too. NEAS core values, if you remember correctly, a few months ago you guys approved new core values and beliefs for the high school. The next step now is really starting to work with the students to integrate those into what we do in day-to-day practice. When NEAS comes here, a big thing they want to know is, okay, do you just have these, or are you actually talking about them with the kids? You're actually working with the kids around these concepts. So we're working with Life Touch right now to create some visual displays for around the school, some aesthetics. It's really important that you try to couple them together, couple these ideas together, and things that kids can quickly kind of come up with. You come up with acronyms, you come up with short, concise statements. So the students are going to be doing that within their home rooms. We're asking them to help us, what do you think? What design would help you put this together? What works the way you think? So having our homeroom students put that stuff together and give us their input. So hoping to plaster the school here before long. It'll take up any wall space we have. So Smarter Balance, if you remember correctly, we are no longer mandated to take the SAT for all of our third-year students, though we are offering the SAT on April 15th to all of our juniors. That's just a service. They don't have to take it. Any student who wants to can, who's a junior. And I want to thank the Rotarians. They've given us their new meeting hall as a testing site. It's really a good idea. It's in the middle of the week. It's on a Wednesday. It used to be on a Saturday, but this year it's going to be on a Wednesday.
They still get the free pass?
You do not get the free pass.
See?
No.
That sucked them in.
It did, you're right. A majority of our kids take it regardless. It's still being paid for by the state, so they don't have to pay for it. And it's a chance to get off campus and have those scores reported to colleges. So, but that means we have a new assessment called the Smarter Balance Assessment. Sean and I have been working on trying to get a pilot together to get the kids trained up a little bit. It's vastly different than an SAT type test. A lot more manipulatives involved. It's a testing window. I think it starts late March and runs through early May. So rather than just sit down and take this one test for a block of time, it's probably going to be several test sessions. It's all online, and it's pretty aggressive. So we're going to be trying to train the kids up as best we can, and we'll get a baseline this year and see where we're at, and I'm sure we'll do fine. But it's going to be a new experience for everybody, no doubt. We did a small pilot last year. This year it'll be the whole 11th grade. So that's our big assessment. Other than that, just an update on our school spirit challenge. We did have to reschedule our talent show, but we had some kids come out of the woodwork that want to be involved, so I think we're going to get enough acts to wow the community. So looking forward to that. I'll get a date out as soon as I have it. Got a winter carnival dance coming up. We are putting together tournament tees to sell before the tournament comes around. I'm going to ask for a whiteout. White t-shirts with Seahawk designs on them, and we'll be selling those in the office. And this, I have to show it off. I'm proud. My mom made it. We're raffling off a one-of-a-kind, authentic, North Bay Region High School Seahawk quilt. Tickets are $2. You can get them in the main office or at Hawk Motors. So, yeah.
That's good.
Mama Welch has been working on this for about a month now, so she's pretty good at that. I told her that I'm asking Santa next year to put one in my stocking.
Big stock.
Yeah.
Big guy,
I'm tired of cold.
And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Dave.
I have one.
Sure.
Do you have the tickets? Or
Yep.
should I s-
No, we're gonna run them down tomorrow. I've got some color photos to go with it, and we'll have them down there tomorrow. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, I think, yeah, that's impressive. That quilt
Thank you.
is impressive. I certainly will be buying some tickets for it. Love to see something like that in my house.
Yeah.
Back to the standards-based report card. Yeah, so I'm sure I have one of these that's on my nightstand at home. It's underneath a more traditional report card that has all the letter grades. So I've already had a briefing with my sixth grader on her report card, which is more like this. It has, you know, the meets and partially meets standards. So we've gone through that, but I have not had a briefing yet with my eighth grader on this piece. But I would imagine, you know, when you look at a report card, you see A, B, or C, and boom, you can pick it right up and see exactly how they did in about 30 seconds. Whereas this type of format, you know, requires a little more sort of reading and review, and I can imagine that it will be a more engaging conversation with your student at home, because you have to look at the standard and evaluate a little more closely, you know, what's being accomplished and what's not being accomplished. So I think if parents do take that time to sit down and review these standards and what each means and how their student is doing on each standard, it will probably be a more engaging conversation at home. So that's what I would expect. Not having done it, not yet prepared to give the feedback, I suspect that's what will happen, is it'll be a more engaged conversation. So that's my comments.
Thanks, Brian.
So should I drop those tickets off the house, or you'll stop by?
Absolutely, absolutely. You can bring those right by the house.
I'll tell Gloria to stop by and
Sure,
get them.
yeah.
Okay. And Alan had to leave abruptly. Everything's fine, but he just had to leave. So we'll go on to Eileen.
The only update I have at this meeting is just a heads up, although it's under the trustees' budget, that Dave and I did lock in at $2 a gallon for the fuel for the 15-16 year, which is going to save about $50,000 in the trustees' budget.
Nice.
The smaller schools were able to lock in at $209. I'm sorry this doesn't get extended to any of us, but it will be a help. as
Is it
we develop the budget.
retroactive or back to
No,
this year?
it's, no, it'd be nice if it were. It's a little bit of a different contract. It's a July 1, it's a 10-month contract that goes to the end of April, but we felt pretty good about locking in at that rate. The amount of heating fuel that we use for May and June is minimal at best.
Right.
So what we'll do is, we probably won't even top off, usually we top off our tanks before the end of the fiscal year. We probably won't even do that and go in, start and top them off maybe in July, so we start with full tanks. But so that was just a bit of good news in the budget session. So the other piece of information, although we're going to go with the transportation budget, is that we did hear back from the state on the emergency request for the bus, and while they did see that we qualified for another bus and an emergency situation, because we're minimum receivers, we would get absolutely no funding for it. So Dave and I have talked about it. We've looked at our current bus fleet right now. We've looked at the condition of the buses, and we're going to try to make it to the end of the year. The budget I'll go over tonight does add another bus into the budget on a 5-year lease.
Good.
So that's the update on that. And Dave put an awful lot of work into getting that application into the state. It's not really easy to navigate through the NEO system, which is what we have to use with the state, but we really worked hard on trying to get any kind of funds for the bus, and we just didn't qualify. So
And Dave, so you feel confident, you know, when the spring comes along with the baseball and the softball and everything, that we're going to be all set?
I'm pretty sure we will be.
that was the cross of his fingers.
The new 2000, well, the new to us 2007 bus is in really nice shape and limited. I mean, it looks nice. Mechanically, it's nice. We've done a couple grand into it, but
Yeah.
that's really been helpful.
Good.
So right now, we have 2 spares, so as long as everything else stays on the road, we should be good.
Good.
And if need be, we can go to Bath Bus Service for $1.25 a mile and get a bus, which is what we did in the past. And as Eileen said, we got a new one coming in October. So we've been talking about trying to look at, looking down the road a little bit, so.
Does the way to get it up to September, is October into the season, so as we get into this issue, is October late?
No, that's when the current bus that Linden has, his is paid off, so we had extended that payment for another bus. So Linden's the new one that he bought, is paid off
And we
there.
can move that back. That's not etched in stone. We can move that purchase back to August.
Yeah, I was just thinking,
If we need to.
just because of when the season starts
Right.
and everything, we don't want to just say, well, we can't because we want to.
Right.
Good.
The other thing is I want to thank Dave and his crew for an outstanding job cleaning up the schools, especially after this past snowstorm. As much as I hated to, I was hoping to get a delay into today. We realized that the drifts of snow were just too much for our crew to really get the things opened safely. So, but thank you very much. It's a lot of hard work, and they work very early in
This
the
was
morning.
nasty.
Yeah, it was.
Couldn't
it was
get
a-
ahead of it.
It was a hard cleanup.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
All lasting.
So that being said, we have our K-12 technology budget, K-12 special services budget, transportation and food service tonight. And then we will review the tech policies for second reading. So I'm going to pass this over to Sean. Do you have You're only 5 there because we're not passing them out to the press and she knows that.
So, I'll start with the elementary school budget. The professional credits has remained the same. The upgrades and homepage repairs is really the account we use to now pay for our web services that we've had redone. And it used to be for our older ones, but now we're using that same money to pay. There's a yearly cost for hosting those, as well as some background support that comes with that for both schools. Computer supplies is about the same, down a little over the last couple of years. AV software went up a little. Ms. Dorr has added a program called IXL that has been used by actually K-3 through 8 teachers, I guess, in just one area, and she wants to add it for ELA now, so instead of being just math, it would be, so that's gone up a little for the subscription service. Equipment new is down significantly. That was the money that was in the budget to upgrade the elementary school computer lab. But you'll see it shows up again in the high school line, so. And then the 5460 for replacement is replacing teacher laptops in the elementary school. In the high school computer lines, the repair line we've squeezed down, and I'll explain why in a minute. The conference and travel has remained the same, supplies is the same. AV software is up quite a bit, and primarily it's we have to update our student information system, Power School, and the choices were between continuing to host it on-site and hosting it off-site. I've decided that, and we've been moving a lot of our systems off-site so that we're paying somebody else to provide the servers, provide the background tech, and we don't necessarily have to have somebody who's capable of doing that. Anyway, Power School we need to upgrade. That would be the migration costs and the yearly fee. The yearly fee is probably about $3,500 after this first year. So the first year will include migration costs and some background training. But the difference would be about a $24,000 one shot if we replace the servers and ran it in-house. Over a 4 or 5 year period, that's probably cheaper. if I'm being frank, but it does eliminate some issues, and especially in terms of the qualifications of the people that we have necessarily using the system. So that stuff happens in the background. So my recommendation is to ship it off, even though there's a yearly fee of about $3,500. And then, so the big change is in our equipment replacement. We have had the original iPads in the 11th and 12th grade for 4 years. It'll be 4 years this spring. And we really, it's time, if we're going to continue to provide one-to-one in the high school, it's time to replace those. So the funding that we used in the elementary school, some of it has moved down into the high school here. That difference is about $19,000. And what we'll do is sign the entire high school up to have MLTI devices. So from 7th grade through 12th grade, every student will have the same device, the same set of apps, the same services that currently our 11th and 12th graders have. The same apps, but they have a device that's significantly older than the ones that come with the MLTI deployment, which we started last year in 9th grade. So those are the big picture items there. I'd be happy to take some questions if you've got a few.
Any questions?
No, those are iPads, not laptops, correct?
Correct.
For the high school.
Correct.
Yeah, was it
So
2 years ago?
when
they
the
got
kids have a report to do, they can still use, I mean, I'm sorry, you'll have to excuse my ignorance, I do not have a tablet, so I don't know how much the significance is of the difference. But I'm thinking in terms of like if you're doing up a report or something like that.
I think it depends a lot on the kids. I mean, I think some kids come down and they'll use a desktop here in the library or in the computer lab. Other kids, will bang out whatever, especially a first draft on their iPad. I think a lot of it depends on length, and being able to have a full screen does sometimes make a difference. I think I shared a couple years ago, I started my PhD program, and for the first 2 years, I made myself just use my iPad, and so it's more than possible to do the work that's required on an iPad. So.
And Sean, maybe some of the teachers can give them too. It seems like a lot of the kids use the iPads. I mean, for their schooling, and I know even in college, some of the kids, they use them in their classes and stuff. So do you find in the school the kids use the iPads, or do they use the laptops, or what? Go ahead, Hildy.
We do quite a few projects in 5th and 6th grade. We have found that the iPads have not been as easy to access for the kids. We do have a cart with a set of laptops on it that the 5th and 6th grade students share. So it's one laptop to 4 kids. And they prefer the laptop. Last year, I had a conversation with a couple of the 8th graders that were tech people that helped Mrs. Dorr. And I asked them as 8th graders, I said, do you guys like the iPads, or would you prefer the laptop? They both had a laptop in their hands that their parents had bought them because they prefer the laptop. I personally prefer the laptops for a classroom teacher to do projects with the kids. And if I was going to have my kids in school here, I would make sure that they had a laptop. Because when they go to college and they're going to do an honor thesis or anything, they need to know how to type. And they need to know that keyboard. And most kids in college use the laptops, and they use the pad, the tablets for games and more quick things like, maybe first drafts or something. But unless you have if you have a keyboard to go with that tablet, you're much better off. But we don't have the keyboards to go with the tablets.
I just know some kids, they like the tablets in college. But it's all familiarity.
It all depends. Most professors, a lot of professors in college do not like you to even have your laptop in the classroom because you're not listening to them. So, I mean,
I've been in school pretty much full-time for the last 8 years at the university level, and I have not been in a class where a professor has said, you can't have a device in your room.
But you're not 20 years old.
I suspect that most college professors are expecting kids to come in technologically savvy and can't get through the course. Most courses are run through student information systems that are all digital. so.
Yeah, but I'm just saying as, you know, the ones that I've talked to, they prefer laptops.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to, it's kind of a segue for me to talk about my project with my AP language students. There are 12 of these students, and they've done some work around the theme of Champions of Change. And one of the projects, this year's project has involved making an iMovie based upon a school reform project of each student's choice. And one student has made an iMovie about calling for greater use of the iPads at the high school. And if she's willing, and the board will allow her to have her iMovie on the agenda, I think you'd be interested to see what she has to say.
That'd be great. Thanks, Mark.
Oh, sorry, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I would say on behalf of my freshmen who've made comments to me about the iPad and digital literacy, that they're frustrated that the tool doesn't work that well for some of the projects that they have to do.
Which one's that, the iPad? Or
The iPad. We have some laptops available to us, but they're so old that they really don't function that well. And it's time consuming to log in and use it well. And many of the students who are more academically motivated make comments about how many of their peers simply use it to play games. I don't know that students of that age have enough self-restraint to make good decisions about how they use that tool. I think it's used a great deal more for gaming than for academic purposes.
Yeah, I have had concern or expressed concern about the keyboard when other meetings in the past, and I've heard similar feedback that, you know, it's tough to, and certainly admire and respect the fact that you can manage that kind of word processing on a smaller screen. But I think I would find it challenging to type any length of document on a smaller device, and so I would be curious to get an understanding of what the cost might be for keyboards to hook up to these things, or some sort of adaptation for keyboards. I talk to students, and they tell me that they use the lab here when they do have longer projects to type out and work on. But yeah, I've talked to a range of students, and I think it is. I think it's tough for many of them to work on a smaller device. So, and then sort of hearing some of this feedback as well just makes me think, yeah, I think it's worth exploring, what kind of adaptations we could come up with and what the cost of that would be. I like the iPad. I think it's a good tool when it's used for its intended use and everything, and I think it's great that we're putting that technology in the kids' hands, but I just want to share my question and concern about the keyboard piece.
Yeah, thanks. Mark, but it would be interesting to get that with the girl, just, we're getting a whole wide variety of feedback, so just to see.
Absolutely.
Put that
I
in.
mean, I'll find out tomorrow whether which of my students is willing to share some of these iMovies with the board. We'll go from there.
Great, thanks.
Hey, Mark,
Laura?
if the project isn't done, can she maybe get like a survey of the kids who are actually using the iPads versus us speculating? You know, are they actually using it for work projects in the classroom, or are they doing games and social media?
Actually, since you asked, each of these
Or
students
do they want keypads? You know, these are things.
each of these students conducted a Google form survey with several questions, so
Awesome.
that's part of the students' iMovie.
Good. Well, and we hope as a board, if we've authorized iPads to go out, that the teachers are using them for classroom and not just to play games. And I'm sure they are. I'm sure there's.
You have to.
And I'm sure they're using them in some way.
Of others.
You said that the teachers are doing it, that they are being able to, they probably are playing games. Every kid, they're probably gonna find a way, but we wanna make sure that they're being used in the classroom also. That's what's important to us.
Sean, is there a difference in the applications that are available? I mean, I'm assuming the ones that are available for the iPads are also available on laptops, or are there some that are not interchangeable?
There are version differences
Oh, okay.
between them, but the functionality is slightly different.
Okay.
depending on
So
whether it's an
going the
iPad or not.
keyboarding route, like getting the accessory might be a better option than looking at laptops instead, or?
Well, so
I
it's a
don't know what kid's
cost.
gonna lug
It's a
around.
cost, right?
Right.
We're talking
Again, one more
about
thing to
3
lose.
times the cost for a laptop.
I think it's interesting, type of market to the girls.
Oh, really?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
maybe maybe come up with a couple of different alternatives? I mean, I know in the
Mhm.
past what we did was we had the workstation laptops that could be shuttled around from one class to the other, so a class who needed it could have them available. I don't know how well that system worked in actual time, but it might be an alternative that would be a little bit more cost effective. But I mean, just so we can have 2 different layers to look at.
Sure, we could, I can certainly pull some figures together. The way we've worked out our replacement schedule, though, it would be a 4-year process to sort of move from one device at this point to the other, because we've been moving in the other direction. But we could also look at what the costs are around having cases that include a keyboard. I will just add that I think of all the uses of an electronic device, typing is the least pedagogically important. It's important to know how to type. It's important to be able to, but really the value of any of these devices are the different ways that kids can express their understanding. And that's what we're hoping for, right? Something like what Mark's talking about, where they're not just typing up a paper, they're in fact using a completely different medium. Those mediums are the language of the future, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. They are the language of the future. Visual and sound mediums are how most people are going to communicate in work, at school, and so those are the kinds of opportunities that I think we want to leverage out of a device like this. A device like this also provides the same access to the information stream that's out there. There's no reason why you can't do your research on one of these devices, compared to another. So, if we think about all the issues, what I think we have going on also is a transition from the way we used to expect kids to tell us what they know to some of the methods that are much more prevalent, quite frankly, in a lot of places.
Yeah, I think those are all great points, and I buy into that 100%. And I think it is, you're right, it's the wave of the future. I just still am concerned about the ergonomics of when you do have to sit down and do a bunch of that typing. Just what's the best way to do it? That's my only concern. I like the technology.
Okay, one more question, Corey?
We have keyboards at the middle school. So we have keyboards, we have 25 in the 8th grade and 25 in the 7th grade. And the kids can sign them out to take them home, and they can also sign them out to use in other classes. So I know a lot of times they'll come from Mr. Scott's room and grab the boxes, the keyboards that are on my cart to use. And so they do have opportunities to use keyboards if they choose to, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them are just as happy to
Yep.
do this type of thing like they do on their phones.
So do you just plug, there's just a cord that goes from the
Where
keyboard
you charge
into
it, it plugs right into there, and it's a regular, it looks like the keyboard like from the first computers that we had, it's a big
Yep.
keyboard and you can type on it like a regular
Yep.
keyboard,
Perfect, yeah, so I mean, if they have that option already, that's all.
For 7th and 8th
Well,
grade.
right, we don't have that option everywhere.
As you
Oh,
said,
okay.
not
Right,
many
it's just the
people use it
7th, 8th
either.
grade wing has it.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Let me get these notes.
Any other questions for the technology? All set? Good.
The next 2 budgets are going to be Jane Stevens for the Booth Bay Region Elementary School special ed budget, and then the Booth Bay Region Elementary School high school budget.
2 weeks ago when we started the budget process, she mentioned what's the process that you use, and I thought this would give me an opportunity to let you know the process that we do to come up with a special ed budget. So I want you to know that the information that I'll present tonight represents information that I got from staff to let me know what would meet the identified needs for services for our students. The information really is generated from the students' IEP meetings. During the budget process, I give the staff a packet of worksheets and ask for information on things they might C, students requiring for the next year specialized programs, evaluations, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech-language therapy services, social work services, school year tutoring, summer tutoring, supplies, textbooks, equipment, and specialized instruction. I send out letters to contracted employees, the OT, PT, social worker, psychologists for hours anticipated to meet IEP recommendations for testing and for those services. Our current initiatives for professional development are teacher training for specialized reading program, which is establishing a K-6 continuum of instruction. We have that for math, and now we're doing that for the language arts piece. Teacher training for transition planning is required for students at the 7-12 grade levels, and that's an updated mandate for the state because the state was found to not meet the federal requirements. So they're backing it down to the schools too. We have an online program to support the writing of Common Core IEP goals and curriculum and ongoing improvement in the use of technology. I then reviewed the requests that came from the teachers, worked with the previous year's budget numbers to determine actual expenditures, reviewed caseloads and IEP recommendations for trends and current and anticipated programming needs. And we do have some changing demographics and an increase in student enrollment, identified students enrolled in special education. I'll start with the elementary school budget, and I will thank David, because the first contracted services for transportation, you will see a change in that line because it has been moved to the transportation budget as required by the state. So I appreciate that. Right up the top.
So this is a heads up that David's budget just went up
Yeah,
10,000 because
we don't really see it down in total. We see a shift.
And so I'm letting you know, I'm being honest here and I'm appreciative. And I'll start with professional credits and in-service based on the teacher and ed tech requests as well as the items that I mentioned previously. I'll go over the increases because I think those are the important pieces for you. The instructional supplies are the materials to address the Common Core standards. The equipment is projectors, printers, some keyboards, and alternate assessment needs. And then it goes down to, and that's the new equipment, textbooks, equipment. So those are the increases. Okay, so there are just 3 lines that have increased in this budget, if you look across.
So are we not looking at the same,
Okay,
you
the
looking at this
elementary
format?
school.
Is this the format that you're looking at also?
That is the format I'm looking
Okay.
So you're just
So when you-
identifying, you aren't going line by line, you're just
No, I was
identifying
just-
things.
and I can answer some of the others, but, I thought you would probably want to know the increase. So
I think we just need to hear everything.
you-
Like the,
okay.
yeah, okay.
So, professional credits and in-service, I just gave you some information on what we're working on. Conference and travel, the same. That is the initiatives that we're working on to improve the instruction for the teachers. The supplies are the supplies for teaching the content areas for the students that are identified that need instruction in math and reading and support for science and social studies. And that as well, we are addressing Common Core too. We have students that are not working at grade level. They need different instruction and different opportunities to show that they can meet the Common Core standards. Equipment was for projectors, printers, and alternate assessment materials. And then it drops down to equipment tuition, which has remained the same, equipment replacement, and new equipment. And some of that is testing materials for the school psychologist.
Looks like you're anticipating a higher use of the school psychologist as well for the upcoming year.
Not a higher use, that's materials for testing. Again, that's reflected in some of the things because of the shift in education. They update the testing
Okay.
materials so that when students are evaluated for their 3-year evaluations or for new referrals, you have to use the latest
So this
updates.
$5,000 increase is
materials
testing
also.
materials, an increase in testing materials?
Predominantly.
Okay.
For the speech teacher, where you see a decrease, what you're gonna see is an actual breakdown between her hours at the elementary school and the hours at the high school, so you'll see that reflected in the high school budget.
So a $15,000 increase at the high school is offset by this $12,000
Yes. Decrease here at the elementary.
And you will see that in all of the social workers, school psychologists, speech therapists,
That's all
occupational
offset.
therapy, physical therapist. It's all based on the caseloads of the individual, the elementary school and the high school.
So that's where you
And-
select it, I'm sorry.
And some of that is because when we do reports for federal, for local entitlement, you have to show where your students are receiving services.
So when we do our local entitlement end of the year financials, we have to actually identify what lines, what school they came out of. So now we have to, the coding at the Department of Ed has changed across the board. We have to code them in the appropriate school, the appropriate line, whereas before we kind of used to break out 60-40, 60% of that person was in the elementary school, 40% was up here. Now they want actual cost per case and per student, so.
Because they look at you following the student and not dropping off their services.
And that's kind of like you said, the demographic of its changes. It changes from one place to the other. Good.
So it's speech retirement, speech ER retirement?
All right, so retirement, we have to pay retirement, the teachers share the retirement, and that's gone from 2.65 to 3.35. That's the retirement, that's the local cost of the retirement. The ER is the local cost of the health insurance. So we have to break each position down outside of instructional teachers into their salary, their retirement, and their health benefits.
I will let you know, for speech therapists, we have a speech therapist who is a staff person, and then we have the contracted services for that also because of a variety of needs.
Okay.
Any other questions? Go on.
We're still just looking at the
Elementary?
Well, let's-
At the elementary.
Right, haven't gone to the high school yet. Okay.
For high school, we'll start with the professional credits, and they're the same. They're teacher requests and the same as last year. Dropping down to instructional supplies, the online curriculum is called Gold Book, and that's an online support for curriculum to meet the Common Core state standards and other materials to address the current changes in curriculum. Textbooks, the same, that's updated for student needs as well. This year, we've had more students receiving classes here at the high school, the ninth graders, in the resource room, with a change of the scheduling. We've been trying that to see how that works to meet students' goals. Equipment replacements, printer, external keyboards, and headphones. Again, at this building, there has been a request for that to meet student needs. So that's both replacement and new. Activities, work study, and transition activities. And then, again, social worker and school psychologists, speech therapists, based on IEP recommendations for the high school caseload.
The thing I wanted to ask about on this is I noticed that you seem to have reduced ed tech salary,
It's not really a
but it's
reduction.
not
I shifted
picked up
staff.
on the other side.
Staff was shifted from this building to the elementary school, so if you look at that, there was a
Yeah,
shift
but
in
it's not
staff.
as same offset though. If you look at ed tech salaries, K-8, and ed tech salaries, high school, it just, there's only 3,000 there, there's 11,000 here. So it doesn't offset each other really.
Yep.
I mean, it feels like you have one less ed tech somewhere.
Well, actually,
Or half an ed tech.
what's happening is that we have an ed tech that's being funded by an outside district.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And then there was a
So-
shift too, but the shift, there's just different, all the ed techs don't make the same amount of money, so there's
Yeah.
a
No.
shift and some support from voice
Yeah.
services.
Well, you had said we have a
elsewhere.
higher number of kids who have the special needs, and I'm not sure how that moves over to deciding how many ed techs you need.
And ed techs, you know, like I said, here at the high school, we have students receiving support as classes. And so if you have groups of students, then you can do things that way. That looks different than having them out in many places and needing the support of an ed tech. So we've really looked at individual student needs, but we've also looked at how do we best use our resources, both monetary and human. And I made some shifts last year with our staff.
Thanks, Jane. Any other questions, Jane? Thank you.
Well, those are first readings, so we certainly can
Yep.
bring them back for.
The social worker, is that a contracted, or that's an
It's a
employed?
contracted service, it's
That's an
employee at will.
An employed person now, right?
Employee at will.
Employed at will, right, not, right, okay. Yep.
The challenging food service budget. It's worked very hard to keep Darlene from not raising her budget, but once again, she's managed to come in at $80,000. That supplements her costs. Obviously, the rest of her budget is made off of the money that she makes off of the program. Feels as though she can continue to keep the food service costs at $80,000, so that's how you help to support and make her ends meet at the end of the year.
Ends meet.
Ends meet.
Well, there's so many questions regarding this. Any
Do you have any questions regarding
regarding?
the food service budget before I move on?
You still making yeast rolls?
Yes, she does.
Good.
That's what we want at the next meeting.
That's right, butter.
Hot
Okay,
with butter.
yeah. Okay, no questions regarding the food budget. We can move to transportation.
Transportation, it's right there. You'll see a small increase in salaries. There is a increase in a health insurance plan because one of our drivers has decided to take one, and that reflects that increase, as well as a slight increase in expected rates. Our workman's comp has decreased because our mod rates went down, so we were able to save significant money on our workman comp rates. Bus insurance has gone up to reflect actuals, it's gone up $1,000. Our special education, the transfer of the $10,000 out of special ed for transportation has gone in here, so you can see that increase. And we do have a lease, recommendation to lease another bus, and we're gonna keep those payments the same because we're gonna pay off the bus that we bought 5 years ago. So we're actually gonna keep that the same. If we want to move that lease purchase back by 2 months, you'll probably see a little shift of increases in costs on that.
But this is considering what you said, making this purchase in October, is that right?
Yeah, but if we wanted to move it back, we would add 2 more months of a payment
Right.
to make it earlier. We certainly can factor that in the next budget. So the overall budget is up $11,000 over last year.
So this is $35,000 for the year,
It's 2 leased buses.
for 2 lease buses?
Yes, the one we bought this year. We bought one in
Yeah.
October. Then we bought a used bus, with your permission, in I think it was November. And now we are going to lease another bus. So the leases run about $18,000 a year.
So we'd have to increase this by a couple months, 2 or 3 months.
If that's
If we
your
wanna make that
recommendation.
purchase.
And that's what we'll find out
Early.
as later in the year, how things are going.
Two
Because I'm sure we'll
payments,
be
right?
up on top
July
of
and
our buses to
August.
see how they're going at the end of the year.
Yeah, we have inspections, our annual, or semi-annual inspections in February. That's always a good time to look and see where you're at with your buses. So I would think by next report, next month, a month from now, that I'd have a little bit better idea to share with you.
Good.
July, August, September, right, October, so we're really looking at adding 4 months payments, 4 months worth of payments if we wanted to make this purchase
It would be
in time
nice,
for the school
it
year.
would be nice to start in September with a new bus, only because of all the fall
Right.
And we're only
travels.
moving it
Or a
up 1
couple
month.
months.
Yeah,
1
'cause we were
month.
getting August.
We could do in August and move it up 2 months.
Right. I mean, that way we know we got it, and
Right.
everyone's
Yeah.
prepared
It
for
takes
it.
several months to pick one up unless we get one that's sitting on a lot. so.
Right, right.
So those are the budgets right now for first reading. We will bring you the adult ed budget on the, I think it's February 11th meeting. And then at that point, we have done all of our first rollouts for first budgets. Then we begin tweaking some numbers and reviewing them
When
again.
you're at- good. Yeah.
Any changes that come up, we'll begin to start to tweak for you.
I apologize, I want to go back to Jane real quick. Nothing, and Toby's here, how was the Winter Olympics? Was it reduced down to, did you lose a day, Jane? Toby?
Lost a day, yeah.
How was it, Toby?
We lost a day because of the storm, which basically meant we lost our downhill racing, which happens on the second day, which of course is something we've worked very hard on. However, it is what it is, and they lost some of the fun pieces of the Olympics that they really look forward to, fireworks, torchlight parade, the dance, all those kind of things. That kind of got, but we had a very nice community supper. It's one of the largest community suppers. The first night, all donated from little towns around Carabasset Valley. They bring in potluck suppers, dishes and salads and desserts, which is very nice. And then we had a community skate and sing along down on the ice rink the first night. So that was fun. We had a good time. We came back with, we can boast that we have most of skiers in the top level. We have 10 of the skiers in the top level, and there are probably 15 that are or were Booth Bay athletes. We have 5 skiers in level 3, we have 1 skier in level 2, and we have 4 beginner skiers. We also, for people who don't really understand, Special Olympics is not a game of musical chairs where only the best go on. Special Olympics is divisioned. So depending on where your athlete falls in division depends on really how quite good their skills are, or how pretty average they are, or how not so hot they are. But we came back with, overall, we came back with 5 8th place, 2 7ths, 3 6ths, 5 5ths, 7 4ths, 3 bronze, 4 silvers, and 2 golds.
Nice.
So we did pretty well. They're pretty proud of themselves. And they know they really worked hard, and they had to get in extra time trials, and you're just asking them to do more and more and more and more because you got to speed up because of the time element. I think one of the highlights is that we had the youngest Olympian there who lit the torch with one of the oldest Olympians. One of the oldest Olympians was 72, and Deshaun Averill lit the torch with him. And because he's so animated, he talked a little bit on TV, and you can look it up a little bit about what he said about skiing and being at the Olympics. It was very cute, and he's a cute little fella. So we were very pleased about that. We've got Booth Bay written all across him, so that was kind of nice too. I was quite proud of them. They've worked really, really hard. It's a lot of getting up early, a lot of money to even at reduced prices, a lot of money to get for the lift tickets to practice and practice hard, and we expect a lot out of them, and they were able to produce a lot. I had this amount of hope for some of my beginning athletes, and I was absolutely gobsmacked by how well they performed above and beyond some of the other teammates their first year out. So that made it really well, and everybody's been fighting cold flu, so they've been in, out, in, out, in, out. So some of them missed 2 practices, and in the world of Special Olympics, that's a lot of practices because you go from one sport to the next sport to the next sport. So they actually did quite well. I'm quite proud of them.
Great, well, thanks, Toby, thanks for bringing those numbers. I'm glad the press is here just to, because every medal that they've gotten, or what they've got, you should be getting one too, the work that you've done to support them. And I know you take that just to brush it off, but it is appreciated, and everyone has seen it from the people that, it's not even the kids that are in the Olympics, but the kids that help out that you've had an effect on, for years. And these people, they've grown up helping your kids, and it's something that they cherish.
Yeah,
And
we had 4 or 5 really good helpers go along with us that have been at it for quite a long while. And some of those helpers we taught to ski, some had learned on their own, but some we taught to ski and are getting quite good themselves, so. And they do everything from helping to ski to running somebody to the bathroom to running to get the skis that were left on the bus to, you know. And
do what
we
they
left
always
a pair of
do with
skis
it.
up there and, you know, as I go to hang them, you know, organization of, you know, 600 pair of skis, you know, and I go to hang them out and I thought, wait a minute. And I was like flipping out thinking, oh my God, there's $100 and something skis that we can't account for. And luckily they found them today up there, so they're gonna hold them for us.
Well, that's great. It's just a tribute to you of how many kids you have coming back to help, you know.
Yeah, it's very nice.
I mean, you know, it's nice, it's an accolade to you, you know, because you give them the responsibility and they take it and run with it.
Yeah.
And I think they really enjoy it. So thank you, Toad, and thank you for the update on the program. That's great. What time did you guys get back?
Well, we get in about 7:30, 7:45 last
Was
night.
it?
It's a really long day because we were up about 6 o'clock. So it's
Great.
ready to go.
I bet. Probably wanted to stay. So,
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd. Okay. All
We
right.
have technology policies.
And technology policies from the last meeting that we have for our second reading.
So I think I'll start with, Sandy had a few observations, and I'll share those with you, and then maybe we can make a decision about what we want to do. The first one was a notation she noted in, so I'm looking at the employee computer use and internet use, both the rules and the policy. In the third paragraph, the rule, or the policy itself, GCSA states, an employee who violates this policy and/or any rules governing the use of the school unit's computers, tablets, networks, and servers shall be subject to disciplinary action. Later on in the rules, it says may. And I think may is the right word here, if everybody else is in agreement. I think there is a whole host of reasons why, you know, whatever happened doesn't deserve disciplinary action. So I think may is the right thing, and I would encourage you to change it to that. Her second question was, for employees, the rules policy doesn't specify who will make the decision about disciplinary action. In the last, so whereas in the student one, it says it's the building principal. I think in the policy itself, that might be covered by the last paragraph where it says the superintendent is responsible for implementing this policy and the accompanying rules. And as with most policies, the superintendent can decide to designate certain aspects of carrying them out to other employees. But I think that's probably how I would read this.
Okay.
If you guys are.
So if you felt the situation warranted, you could delegate it to
Yes.
building.
Most of our policies have that clause. Yeah.
Your third question for the student rules, the policy states disciplinary action may commence after the student has had a chance to respond. But for employees, there's no similar language. And I think you're right in the assumption that any action would follow the grievance procedure, or not the grievance, but the procedure that's stipulated in the contract.
In the contract,
Right.
so that would cover it. Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Right, otherwise, I think we'd have to spell out recapture the entire thing in policy, and then the problem becomes if you try to change it at the contractual level,
Then
you have to change your policy again, so.
Okay.
And then your last one was an interesting question. It says in the employee rules on the last page, there's the inclusion of volunteers being held to the same level of responsibility for monitoring student use. I would say we want that first, because there's oftentimes a teacher will leave behind a task for, say, a sub, or somebody who's working with kids. So I think we want them to know they're responsible. But your second point, I think, is an important one, because I'm not sure we have a formal process to talk to those people about what are the expectations when you're in charge of a classroom of kids that are using devices. So I think that's an important point to note. I'm not sure it changes the policy,
No,
but
I
I
don't
think
think
it's
so
something we
either.
want to add to what we do in our buildings around preparing subs or volunteers to be working with kids when they're using devices. So,
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
were there any other questions from the rest of the board on either one of those?
Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
All set? Okay. Thanks, Sean.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay. Okay. And now we can go to public participation.
Do we have a motion?
I was going to do that.
Oh, we'll do that first, okay, yeah,
Afterwards.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Larry, and good evening, everyone. Brian and John have heard from me a lot in the last year as we've tried to reach a contract agreement. And so, as I promised last meeting, we have more teachers who would like to speak tonight. I do want to congratulate Toby and her students on the Special Olympics results, and thank her for her amazing dedication to her students. She spoke poignantly at the last meeting. We do have an executive session, fact-finding meeting coming up February 3rd, so it's imminent, and I thought that it would be appropriate again tonight for our board to hear more fully about what our teachers are doing all day long within the contracted day and beyond the contracted day as we continue to work without a current contract. So we have 3 teachers, Ms. Carol Clark, Ms. Tanya Hammond, and Ms. Kathy Hartley, who would like to speak. And I think we have a follow-up question for the board afterward. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Carol Clark, the Spanish teacher here at the high school, and I want to thank you for letting me speak. The reason that I'm going to speak tonight, though, is more to the point of why I became a teacher. So here goes. One of the reasons I come to teach every day is because I have wanted to be a teacher ever since I was a child. When I was young, I had teachers I looked up to and wanted to emulate, and I still remember them, a lot of them to this day, especially elementary school teachers. They knew how to treat students with kindness, caring, and with a drive to make you want to learn. I also had parents, my parents, who cared about my education and got involved with my learning, a trait I hope I'm passing on to my child and to my students. They, however, are my main reason for teaching students. I look forward to coming to school each day just to talk with students and perhaps impart some of the knowledge I was so blessed to learn from other teachers over the years. My students make me laugh. They show me kindness. They ask great questions, and yes, sometimes they even drive me crazy. But then, everyone's driven crazy at some point by something or someone. I get energy from my students, who then spur me on to be a better teacher. I take them on trips. I've gone on trips to Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Spain, because I want to get to know them outside of the classroom in real-life situations and experience things with them like just washing cars or going on a horseback ride or just talking with them about why they're missing home on such a short trip. If we look back on our lives, we all probably had a favorite teacher at some point in time. I'm sure you all can remember one. They weren't great because they had extra initiatives passed on to them outside of their regular classroom duties, but because they loved what they taught and wanted to pass it on. Where would any of us be without teachers? I know I wouldn't be standing here tonight in front of you without them. The teachers in this building are those caring individuals who deserve to be treated with the respect and salaries they deserve. I know I've witnessed their kindness firsthand, especially over the past year, which has been a really rough one for me. They've been my colleagues, my friends, and a shoulder to cry on when needed. I think a lot of you already know, but we teachers do so much more than most people realize. But then, why else would we stay here, if not for the love of our subject, and especially our students? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tanya Hammond, I teach freshman English and digital literacy. After I decided I would speak at this meeting to share why I teach, I struggled. I didn't know where to begin. The reasons are countless and common among teachers. I finally decided to share with you an abridged version of an assignment, a belief essay, I wrote alongside my students for their final exam in English. I have always been one to reflect. Most of my childhood memories are based in deep thought about how we interact, how we make each other and ourselves feel incredible, or proud, or worthless. I was raised well. My parents modeled good manners, ethical behavior, and hard work. But what made it all real to me was that they explicitly taught me how to be a good person. Like when my dad returned to the car after paying for windows in the hardware store. He sat in the driver's seat, going over his receipt, calculating that he had been significantly undercharged. He returned to the cashier to point it out and pay the balance. Over $100 more, which in the late 70s was a good portion of his paycheck. We kids were bewildered by what he did. He explained to us that even though it was their mistake, and he could have driven home instead of returning to correct the error, it was simply the right thing to do. He wouldn't want the cashier to be fired or for the store to lose money. And he had his integrity. My parents did that. They explained their challenges and their choices and had humility about their shortcomings. Listening to their stories, their beliefs, enabled me to internalize those beliefs and live them. These days, I am a mom and a teacher. As a mom, I have received my fair share of criticism, one being that I explain more than I need to such young children. I shrug it off. I don't want to leave it to chance that my boys will find the pearl of wisdom on their own. As a teacher, many of my students sigh heavily or outright complain when I ask them to reflect or do other things they classify as touchy-feely. Obviously, I have shrugged that off as well. Hence these belief essays for their final exam. My students think I ask them to do this because I'm sappy and like to cry. But they happen to be wrong. I know they have beliefs. I want them to reflect on what they are, to be able to articulate them, and to make their marks on us all by explicitly teaching us. It may be better to give than to receive, but it is best to give and receive. Every day as a teacher, I face challenges. Curriculum, behavior, communication home, time constraints, scheduling, rescheduling, posting online, advising, monitoring, cleaning, learning and troubleshooting technology, scoring, reporting, providing intervention, doing committee work, making referrals, accommodations, and recommendations. And I give it my best. I choose to be a teacher. I believe that in return, I should receive a contract ensuring just compensation and benefits. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Kathy Hartley. I teach 4th grade in the elementary school. Teaching. How it has changed in the relatively short amount of time since I have entered this profession, which I think is 17 years. You see, I'm not even sure how many years I have been teaching because I love what I do, and counting has never been necessary, which carries over into the number of hours I put into my job. I truly have no idea, but I do know that when I come in early every morning after a 5:30 swim, leave every day generally between 5 and 6, and come in on one weekend day every week, I am well above my contracted requirements. When I'm asked for the dates of our school vacations or the tentative final last day of school, I shrug, for I truly do not know. I don't keep track. That's just me. Then, how do I know that the year is almost half over? Because the prepping for all the testing has begun. What a shame that we are forced to take the most fertile time period of a student's academic year and fill it with all that we are required to do. We have just been informed we need to start prepping our students for the demanding Smarter Balance test this spring. Along with that, we will have the NAEP test administered to our students in just a few short weeks, and then come those Smarter Balance tests that we've been practicing, followed by the spring NUIAs, and let's wrap up the year with a final DRA. Many of my other colleagues also have to prepare PAPEs and SCSCs, alternative assessments, not to mention the middle school teachers that are spending hours on our new proficiency-based graduation portfolios. On top of that, we as teachers are using valuable time on mapping curriculum on Atlas to align with the Common Core. We are getting trained on how to navigate through the eye-observation teacher evaluations, and along with that, we are being trained in the timely PE/PG, the professional evaluations, professional growth plans. Somehow, knowing that all of the above is federally mandated does not help to ease the feeling of being totally overwhelmed with all that we are being asked to do. Teaching has become so much more complex. So I had to truly ask myself, why am I choosing to speak tonight? Certainly it is not to complain. I, along with all my colleagues, constantly are trying to make our teaching better. We try to shoulder everything we are now being asked to do the best we can on top of the normal demands of our everyday teaching. But the demands have gotten to levels that are beyond measure. I do appreciate when I hear from the school committee that you really appreciate all that we do. I really do appreciate that, and I think you really mean it. But verbal appreciation is not enough. We have been working without a contract. Hence, simply stated, in addition to your verbal appreciation, my colleagues and I need a contract. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Mark, did you say you had additional statement?
Yeah, I had a question. It was at the last meeting when you talked about the budget. I believe, Eileen, you said that I think we were in great shape. We were in good shape as far as where we were in the school year and how much money we have spent and how much we have left. I think it was like 51.8 or something like that. So my question is, why were our budgets frozen?
They're just frozen right now because I need to get a handle on my end of the year balances, and they're frozen. We freeze them every year, this time of year, for about 4 weeks, so we can identify what our end of the year projections are, then they'll be unfrozen.
They will be unfrozen?
Yeah, we do this every year.
Oh, I didn't realize that they became unfrozen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thanks again. Thank Mark and thank teacher. And I just want to reiterate the support that the appreciation that we have for you. Again, I don't think I mentioned before, but every one of us had kids in the school, and they've all learned from you being you teachers. So we do. You guys are in a union. It's a process, and I'm very glad to hear that you finally have been able to schedule a meeting, because it's been put off for a while with the union representatives. So I'm really glad that we're actually having a meeting to get the ball rolling again. So, and I do appreciate you folks coming, because it always adds something to us. The administrators are great, Eileen's great with questions that we have, but when we have people actually down with the kids, it really helps us out. So again, thanks.
Could I just add,
Sure.
Larry, that you mentioned that the union was involved in putting off the meeting. Joan Martin, our UNICEF director, has had medical leave. She was unable to make it earlier, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, but I'm just glad that she's well and she's able to get that going again, so that we can.
So she's getting to it as soon as she can. Thank you.
Good, great, okay. Thank you, folks. Next thing, we'll go to the item for school committee approval. Recommend the school committee review the policies UNDB, UNDBR, GCSA, and GSCAR. And do we have a motion? Second. I think I'm showing my age, and I've been on 18 years, and I'm starting this may be the first time I really need glasses. So, that's why I'm just reading the initials. This isn't highlighted, so I think we're all set. And do we have a vote? I don't know. Great. Other business? Any other comments or anything? Nothing?
And I kind of knew all this, but I kind of know contract thing come up? Is this an annual thing, every 5 years? Does this happen every year?
I'll let John and
3 years.
Brian,
3 years.
usually 3 years.
Every 3 years, and so like 3 years ago, did this all happen, or did it just kind of go smooth? I just don't know the history.
Roughly the same thing every 3.
Similar process.
Is it usually a money thing, or is it insurance, or is it lots of things? I just don't know. And I'm sure most people don't know, they don't.
Money and insurance are the biggest.
And so how long do they typically go without their contract? Is this uncommon to
They
go
have a
halfway through the year?
contract, the teachers are working under their current contract.
So, but does it usually go this far into the school year? Is this new and rare, or is this normal?
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
We are, if I could just clarify again, we are working under a contract, but it's the old contract. It's technically not a current contract.
If you got a review last year and you did really, really well and you got a raise, I don't know if you guys get them individually or not, are you still not receiving any money?
It's scale.
It is. And so nothing new's happened if they had earned something, is that right? Is that part of it too? I just don't know.
I don't understand the question.
And so you do a bump and you haven't gotten a bump? Catching on, okay. I just want to make sure, I'm sure lots of people don't know this, right? And I just want to be clarified, okay. And so you guys meet in February? Is that what you're saying? supposed to-
February 3rd, there's a fact-finding session.
And could that be the end of it?
That's closed to the public. That's an
Okay.
executive session.
Right.
And then there's a 30-day period in which the fact-finding commission can issue their findings.
So the board isn't the one saying no at this time, it's the union, and who's meeting on our side?
Right now, the board and the teachers' union are what we call an impasse. There are some items that they can't agree on. So there's a process by law that's put into place. We did go to mediation. That was what was required, and it's still at that point. There was no agreement. They were not able to reach an agreement. The next step is something called fact-finding, where a group of 3 individual people from outside of this district, identified by the Maine Labor Board, will come down, will hear the board's position, will hear the teacher's position, and then they have 1 month in which to come up with a conclusion or findings, for lack of, obviously fact findings, so they're going to come up with their findings. At that point, basically the findings are brought back to us and to the teacher and to the teacher union reps, and then we go back to negotiate basically on what their findings are. That's it in a nutshell.
And the things they read tonight, does that get included, or is it just what
No,
happens at the
those are,
fact finding?
that's not part of the fact finding.
That's just the education of the board? Is that what the goal was today? Okay, got it.
And this is, if you look at the quality paper today, there's another district in Maine within our conference to make it easier to identify, that's going through the same process. So it's something that we have confidence going to work out into a positive thing for the teachers as well as the community and the school. So we look forward to you guys meeting. So I think that's it. Next meeting dates will be 6 p.m. Wednesday, February 11th, and the 15th, the 25th. We'll decide on the 25th at the 11th meeting. Okay? So adjournment time is 7:25. And motion? Brian? Second? All in favor?
Second.